Short story 15. Will Ravi return? One who knows how to paddle his canoe reaches the shore safely, even on a stormy day. In a resplendent purple silk saree that rustled at her every movement, Rekha hurried up to the inquiry counter at the Hyderabad airport. Her heavy golden bangles jingling down her forearms, her nails glistening in scarlet hue, she leaned forward with a smirk and inquired, "When is the flight from Mumbai expected, please?" The uniformed male staff member at the counter could not help having a longer look at the tiger face containing those bridal marks of makeup, including the dark red lip color, pink cheeks, and the ears adorned with gleaming diamond rings. Rekha still retained that coy style of the newly married. "You mean the flight number 452, madam?" "Yes, that takes off at Mumbai at 10 a.m. if that is what you mean. It has taken off, madam, on time. May land at 10:50 a.m. "Thank you." Rekha looked at her gleaming new watch. It was 10:30 a.m. With an elegant gait, she moved to one of those blue chairs by the wall across the polished granite floor of the airport visitors hall. Leaning back in the chair and closing her eyes, she began to float in her dream world beside her husband Ravi. Yes, she married Ravi only last Saturday in a glittering marriage at Hyderabad. Her father, Dr. Murthy, a widower and a renowned general surgeon of Hyderabad, had celebrated the marriage in a fitting scale, as Rekha was the only daughter. On Sunday morning itself, she had moved into Ravi's quarters ceremonially with the blessings of elders and her parent. Ravi, 27, was a handsome IPS officer with an athletic physique, strutting about in the starched uniform with a burnished belt round his trim waist and a cropped moustache bristling with masculinity. She stood charmed of his personal qualities. Both had also planned for a honeymoon, hence she had taken leave for a fortnight from the Government Women's College where she was serving as a lecturer, having completed her post-graduation in economics. But as it happens to a police officer, he had to leave for Mumbai urgently on a special assignment on Monday, a day after the marital consummation. "Rekha, don't cry. I'll be back on Sunday by morning flight," Ravi had assured, wiping her tears. "I'll be at the airport on Sunday, Ravi, to receive you," she had responded, overcoming her tears. After his arrival by his flight, she will once again feel the same ecstatic presence of Ravi. That rapture at Ravi's warm and affectionate embrace, and the same warmth of his close breath as his sharp nose nuzzled her cheeks. In his tight hug, she would cozily stalk along the highway of marital bliss, the golden highway which slowly unfolded before her in imagination. "Your attention, please." It was a sudden and raucous announcement that resounded through the waiting hall. She listened. "The authorities deeply regret to announce the indefinite delay in the arrival of flight number 452 from Mumbai." A violent shiver waved down her whole body. The man at the counter had told her that the aircraft had taken off on time, but the subsequent announcement says that the arrival of the flight is indefinitely delayed. What then has happened to the aircraft after its takeoff? She shuddered to imagine the dreadful possibility. Has anything happened to the aircraft in midair? Her mind was already whirling helplessly in an engulfing vortex. Unable to overcome the powerful outbursts of agony, she could raise herself onto her feet only by holding on to the armrest of the chair. She managed to totter up to the inquiry counter, her cheeks flooded with tears and her heart hammering away at her ribs. She prayed that nothing should have happened to Ravi. The benign face behind the counter cropped up from the starched livery. The man rose and leaned over the counter as he noticed her evident agitation and gestured her to come round the counter to his side. As she approached him nervously, her mind full of all dreadful probabilities, the counter staff muttered in a confidential tone, Mrs. Mrs. Rekha is my name. What has happened to the flight? Mrs. Rekha, my information was correct. The flight did take off as per schedule. Then, but what happened? But it won't be landing. Rekha had to clutch her heart that began to race and threatened to shatter into pieces. Has it been hijacked? She managed to ask him, her voice choked. No, he whispered. The aircraft developed a technical snag mid-air and is reported to have, Rekha involuntarily echoed, clutching her chest to control herself from screaming in terror. Sorry, Mrs. Rekha, it is reported to have caught fire in mid-air and crashed at a place nearby Hyderabad a few minutes ago. None is reported to have survived. More information and the list of the passengers will be made public in stages so as to not cause any panic or shock. Feeling a large lump in her throat, she gave vent to a stifled sob and held on to the counter. Seeing her plight, the official at the counter advised, Please wait for a few minutes, madam. The list of passengers would be out. In between violent paroxysms of grief, Rekha said with resignation, What is the use? My husband told me that he would be arriving by this flight. I don't know. She broke into a violent fit of agony. As the embarrassed staff looked on trying to console her, a livery bearer brought the list to the counter. The counter functionary asked her with her eyes still on the list clipped onto a pad held in his hand. What is your husband's name, madam? Ravi Mohan, she grasped, her voice choked with anxiety. Slowly anxious people also began to flock the counter as they got wind of the fact that the list was available. After a brief second, still in the depth of her grief, she heard the voice from the counter. Good news for you, Mrs. Ravi. Your husband's name isn't there. Are you sure? Regaining the strength, she asked through her tears. Yes, madam, I am quite sure. You can see for yourself if you like. He handed the list to Rekha. She grabbed it and went through the list eagerly, not once, but at least 3 to 4 times. A smile lit her tearful face and a sigh of relief escaped her bosom. Okay, sir, I don't know how to thank you. Handing back the list with evident gratitude, she literally bounded out of the premises, feeling like screaming in relief. At last Ravi was safe. Let him come by any other flight. It mattered little as long as he was not on this ill-fated flight. Quite oblivious of the startled gaze of hundreds of pairs of eyes on her in the airport, she bounded towards the exit with gay abandon and energy of a schoolgirl. Such glad news should be shared with her father. Daddy, I am speaking from the airport. I think you have heard the news. Yes, Rekha, you mean the flight number 452? Yes, it caught fire in mid-air today. Yes, Daddy. Ravi was to arrive today by the same flight. So I went to the airport to receive him. I checked up the list of passengers who traveled in the flight. Ravi's name is not there. There was a silence for a moment at the other end. It appeared to be a deliberate attempt to cover anxiety. Daddy, Ravi's name is not there, she repeated with a slight vestige of apprehension in her voice. Was anything wrong? I also came to know. However, please come to the hospital. I want to talk to you. Okay, Daddy, I'm actually on the way to your place. She clicked off her cell. Suddenly again things began to look different. The thought, is anything wrong, haunted her mind. Wiping her sweat and parking the car in the compound of the hospital, she hurried to the doctor's room. Come, Rekha, come. Dr. Murthy gestured towards a chair, but his voice was not steady, though there was an apparent nonchalance in his attitude. But Rekha wanted to make out the truth. Rekha, to be on the safer side, I want to make sure that Ravi was not on board the aircraft. You know, when he has been specially drafted as a member of the special task force to trace out the suspects in recent attempt to blow up a bridge over a creek in the peripheral area of the city of Mumbai. As the involvement of terrorists and the underworld goons was suspected, they say his movements may be watched by these culprits and hence he may not be traveling in his own name. I therefore requested them to contact the authorities at Mumbai to know whether he has actually boarded the flight and traveled under any of the names in the list. He paused. Rekha noted that his voice was not steady. She felt that she would faint. She had to keep herself up in the chair with difficulty. What did they say, Daddy? She asked feebly, unable even to articulate. They said they would get back in a few minutes, Rekha. Let us wait. I hope nothing untoward has happened. She was grasping for breath. What exactly has happened to Ravi? She buried her face in her hands and wept, tears trickling through her fingers down to her wrists. Don't worry, Rekha. God is there. The father tried to console her, but in the process he was unable to control himself. He also set up a muffled sob. Suddenly the telephone on the doctor's table pealed for attention. He picked up and answered the call. Rekha watched her father's face nervously. After listening for a few minutes, his whole body shivering, he said feebly, "Is it so?" and let the telephone slip from his hands. Rekha jumped from the chair towards the doctor and holding him by the shoulders and violently shaking him cried, "What is it, Daddy? What happened? Tell me, Daddy, tell me." She picked up the dangling phone and listened. By then it was disconnected. She broke down. The doctor himself, quite disconcerted, slowly raised Rekha and helped her sit in the chair. "Calm yourself, Rekha. Let us pray what I have heard may not be correct. They say that they are also not able to categorically say by which name Ravi has travelled, as that would be kept as a top secret till sanction comes from the highest authority in the concerned department. The only information they have is that just before the departure of the flight, Ravi told the departmental driver who dropped him at the airport to go back as he had obtained the boarding card also." Rekha, after breaking into bursts of grief, remained silent, staring wildly at the ceiling. Her eyes were flooded with tears. The doctor lay slumped in his chair. After a few seconds, the telephone again pealed. Rekha sat up hopefully that some new favorable information would be forthcoming. The doctor's hand lifelessly curled over the receiver as if under a deep spell. He faintly responded, "Hello." Then his eyes traveled to her. "Yes, she's here." He beckoned her to speak, extending the receiver towards her. She nervously took it and listened. "Hello, Mrs. Ravi," said a hoarse voice that sounded derisive, totally devoid of courtesy, and seemed to belong to a ruffian. "Your husband is in her custody." What? She did not know how she said it. It was another severe jolt to her young mind, still not out of the bridal thrills and ecstasies. From the hissing frying pan to the blazing inferno. Was Ravi alive? If so, what is going to happen to him? Or did he fly back as per the version of the police department? The information from the department should be correct. "Hello, we have no time to hold on and listen to your sobs and wailings," said the ruthless voice in a tone of finality. "Mrs. Ravi, you don't have to pay any ransom. All you have to do is contact the concerned Bombay police authorities through your father's friend at Hyderabad and arrange for the release of the 2 members of a gang in the custody of the Mumbai police. Then your husband will be at your door. The police know whom we refer to, as it is the same case your husband is dealing with." Deeply sunk into the depths of uncertainty and anguish, she could hardly articulate. "I am totally confused." She began to sob violently. "Police feel he was in the ill-fated flight number 452, as he had obtained the related boarding card also. You say he is with you. Where exactly is Ravi? Who told you that he boarded the flight?" "The police authorities." She sobbed into the phone. "At Bombay or at Hyderabad?" "At both places. She broke down again as a huge outburst of despair made her shudder. She heard the loud laugh that sounded expressive of satisfaction. "Remember, madam, to arrange for the release." The telephone clicked off. "Who was it?" Rekha asked her father anxiously. "Daddy, it appears that some gangsters have taken Ravi as hostage and want two of their members to be released from Mumbai in exchange for Ravi." She again went into a fit of weeping. "My God, a new angle." The doctor lapsed into a shocked state, but managed to recover his equanimity in a few seconds. "I'll speak to local SP Mr. Ravindra," he muttered more to himself and dialed. After speaking to the SP and keeping down the receiver, he turned to Rekha and said, "Rekha, the police authorities feel that it is a ploy by the gang to extract the truth from you. The gang wanted to make sure that Ravi was on board, as they were not aware of Ravi's movements." Rekha sat up and explained, Yes, now I understood. That is why he asked me who told you, but Daddy, I am unable to bear this suspense. Please take me to Mumbai immediately. We shall go there and find out." No need," a firm and confident voice said from the doorway. The very voice that Rekha immediately recognized. The very voice all the while. Rekha was longing to hear. Yes, it was Ravi's. He stood there in his plain clothes, fully drawn up to his majestic height. Rekha and the doctor turned their eyes to the doorway and stared with incredulity at Ravi. A shriek of delight escaped Rekha as she leapt to Ravi and clung to him. "Rekha, I took the next flight that leaves Mumbai by 11:30 a.m. I touched down just now. I know you will be here." He patted her cheek and then, turning to the doctor, asked, "Can I use the phone, uncle?" Yes, by all means," said the doctor. Still with one arm around Rekha, Ravi picked up the receiver and, holding it on the other hand, dialed with his forefinger and said into the phone, "Hello, Ravi here. Thank you, Mr. Ravindra. But for your cooperation, it would have been impossible for me to complete my task. The gang was after me, and a suicide team sneaked in and blew up the aircraft thinking that I was in it. As we had no prior knowledge, we could not save the passengers. But within minutes, Mumbai police have captured those responsible for this also. Also, thanks for keeping up the impression that I was on board the flight. Otherwise, they might have attacked subsequent flight also. I remember the quotation I read somewhere. One who knows how to sail a canoe reaches the shore safely, even on a stormy day. Only my wife and father-in-law got rattled. No, don't worry. I shall explain to them that you were bound by duty not to reveal anything in my own interest till I return. Thanks." Keeping down the receiver, Ravi said, "Thank you, uncle, for your efforts to keep up the spirit of Rekha. We shall meet you in the evening, uncle." So saying, he hugged Rekha and moved out as Rekha nestled in ecstasy in the warmth of his embrace. The doctor sat staring at them with paternal pride as they exited the room.